All times in the Catholic Church.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Full disclosure, if you don't know it already, sinning, practicing Catholic, failed at it many times. Unfortunately, there seems to be more common ground with the clergy these days than most of us are comfortable with, and it's kind of a shock to our systems. Nice to have you aboard. We're going to forego primary conversations for both tonight and tomorrow night because we're going to focus on some of the challenges the church has. We're honored to have and always honored to have. And I'm reminded, by the way, that he was my first guest on this television program coming up on 5 years ago, and that's Bishop Thomas Tobin. We'll also have some members of the diocesan staff in tomorrow night's show. Both are being recorded on Wednesday if you're seeing this on an original episode. All right, so welcome in. With no further ado, unfortunately, here's a headline that amongst the many that have been discussed, it's kind of shocking to the system, right? And here's the network report.
The explosive 11-page letter likens the Catholic Church to a mafia and suggests a conspiracy of silence that extends all the way to the top. It was penned by Italian Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, once the Vatican's top official in the U.S. He claims that in 2013, he personally told Pope Francis about sex abuse allegations involving then Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, but the pontiff ignored it, allowing the prominent cardinal to serve the church for another 5 years until he resigned amid a sex abuse scandal this summer.
Io non dirò una parola su questo.
I will not say a single word on this, the pontiff said, when asked by CBS News about the letter on Sunday's papal flight. Monsignor Anthony Figueiredo called Vigano's letter an earthquake for the church.
Let us be clear. If the Holy Father knew about Cardinal McCarrick on the 23rd of June 2013, as Archbishop Vigano claims, and did nothing about it, then it's serious, as the Pope himself has said.
Pope Francis has called for zero tolerance for church leaders who cover up sex abusers in the ranks. Sean Doherty says he was abused by a pedophile priest in Pennsylvania. He says Vigano's letter only further erodes trust.
It is obvious to us that the church is incapable of handling this mess. Look where we are now today. It's like reality TV right here in real time.
High-profile cardinals and church leaders are slamming Vigano's letter as untrue.
Well, you know, it's hard to see this turbulence, isn't it, Bishop?
It is. Dan, first, it's good to be with you, as always.
By the way, Bishop got a little allergy thing. He may cough and wheeze a couple of times. Everything is under control here. And don't suppress. We got enough to talk about.
I'm not going to
we're casual here, as you know. So.
I'm not going to pass out, but it's always good to be here in good times and in bad times and to discuss this very, very troubling issue.
Yeah. Well, look, this is not new news. I mean, the scandals, the abuse issues, all of that kind of stuff we've been dealing with for a couple of decades now. What is new is this now hierarchy battle, and it really is shocking to the system for Catholics, non-Catholics alike, I think, to hear the Pope under some kind of siege. You put out a statement regarding it that I think is quite fascinating. You more or less said, hey, listen, we got to take these allegations seriously. But you also are saying, hey, listen, I got the Pope's back. I'm paraphrasing what I took from it. Can be acute with this. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me clarify, and it's been misreported in various places. I did not call for the Pope to resign, even though that was making the rounds for a few days or at least a few hours. I did not call for our Holy Father to resign, although some have. What I said is that there's a cloud over the Vatican. It's a cloud over the Pope, and that's unfortunate, because people know Pope Francis. They love Pope Francis. They respect him. So I think it would be good for the Church, be good for the Vatican, be good for the Holy Father for this situation to be investigated. You know, Archbishop Vigano has lodged some pretty significant charges against the Pope. And he's a well-placed, highly respected prelate of the Church. He's had some very powerful positions. So I think it would be good for the Church and good for the Pope in particular for this situation to be investigated. And keep in mind, I'm not the first or only bishop to say that. There have been a number of bishops, probably a dozen or more.
What's the nature of the investigation going to be? I mean, it's not like you call Bob Mueller, a special counsel, to come in and take a look at this whole thing.
That's one of the questions. I'm not sure who would who investigates the Pope. Would it be some of the other cardinals who are the closest collaborators with the Pope?
Has there ever been a church process in place for something like this?
Certainly not in recent history. I don't know, in the Middle Ages and so forth before that. But this is new territory for us. It's unprecedented. But the Bishops' Conference have asked for this to be looked into. A number of bishops have looked into it. So I just think it's good for us for the sake of clarity, and so we can begin to move on, and the Pope can continue his ministry, that somehow we need some clarity over this. It would be good for everybody.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful, just like the politicians who failed to investigate things like 38 Studios, right? Talking about moving on while you're in the middle of the fracas can be again, a bad message, because it sends this notion. I think what's permeated the church's aura is this, okay, let's just get through it. Let's just get through it. And I think the early mishandlings that all of us agree the church undertook when it came to sexual abuse victims was to minimize and to categorize and to compartmentalize and to try to put it in a place so that we could just move on. So
yeah,
not here to criticize you. I'm just saying that tone is something that hasn't gotten us very far.
But the point is, some people want to move on without investigating it. What I have said, and others have said, is it's only after it's investigated that we can move on.
And we don't even know how to investigate it.
And the ministry of the church can carry on as we must.
This guy, and respectfully, Archbishop Vigano, he's got a big homosexual problem in terms of just his perspective on the church. In fact, he has, it seems to me, and I know this is a very murky, you and I have had many conversations about this, and Pope Francis has kind of lightened the load a little bit in terms of the temperature on the conversation without changing church teaching, which is an interesting needle to have to thread, don't you think?
Sure.
But Vigano seems to me to be somebody who believes that homosexuality is at the root of some of the behavioral problems. Do you agree with that?
Well, again, just to be clear, when you say that he has a homosexual problem, I don't think you're saying that he is
No.
homosexual.
Right,
but
correct.
he is pointing to what he believes is a major problem in the church, and that's one of the primary fault lines that has emerged in this whole discussion the last couple months. What are the causes of sexual abuse in the church? There are some who are totally and absolutely convinced, with some reason, I think, that there is a homosexual problem among leaders of the church, priests and bishops and cardinals, some are saying. Others take a different approach and say that the real core issue here is clericalism, the abuse of authority, the cover-ups, the lack of transparency, and that has led to and enabled the sexual abuse problem. I don't know, is it one or the other, a little bit of both? Probably, but there are different camps that have emerged in trying to analyze and respond to this issue.
So here's the million-dollar question I think a lot of Catholics and well, just people in general have as a concern. Does this behavior develop from the celibacy commitment, or are individuals who are inclined to behave this way seeking the priesthood as a place to manifest it?
I don't know. I think that's a social science question, a psychological question that other people have to address. I don't think the whole issue can be laid just at the door of celibacy, because keep in mind that the problem, and it is a problem, it's a terrible problem, of the sexual abuse of minors is not just a Catholic Church problem. It happens in other church communities that have married clergy and women clergy. It happens in public schools. It happens in Scouts. It happens in Little League. It happens most of all in our homes. I don't know the exact number. It's something like 80% of sexual abuse of minors takes place in a domestic setting. So if celibacy were the only issue or the primary issue, I think that would be worthwhile discussion. But I think it's very hard to make that connection directly.
Is the seminary doing enough to talk about these issues?
Yes, I think.
I mean, listen. Every Catholic,
Sure.
everybody wonders, hey, how do priests, how's this whole thing work? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they're all built the same way. You know, I mean, listen, we all, and I don't know that we have to have an open conversation about it necessarily, but it might not be a bad idea to have a little bit more public conversation about, how a healthy young man chooses to become and remain celibate.
Sure.
So that we don't conflate the issues.
Well, I don't think anybody will say that celibacy is easy. I think it involves, first of all, a certain discipline, a certain personal psychology. It involves a sacrifice. Celibacy has never been easy in the following of Christ, but it's a sacrifice that we ask young men to make in the priesthood today in the church. At least in most cases, we know there are some married priests, certainly in the Eastern Church and some other exceptions, but for the most part, priests who serve in the Catholic Church make that commitment to celibacy. But that's after a very careful and thorough process of vetting when they come into the seminary program, through at least 5 or 6 years of training in the seminary program with psychologists involved and evaluations. So obviously it's not a perfect system, but it's a pretty thorough system.
I want to go back quickly about when I mentioned Archbishop Vigano and the homosexual issue. It seems to me when I say he's got a problem, and I want to make sure people understand, I don't think research shows that that orientation also provides proclivity for abuse. I mean, I don't see that in the real world, meaning outside the church. But he's got a political issue, and the ease, at least the temperature cool down that the Pope has brought to that issue is turbulent.
Turbulence is the right word, and it's pretty clear that Archbishop Vigano has had other issues and other disputes with the Pope. This is not the first time. So
and you're pretty conservative yourself.
Some have said that,
right?
Yeah, so yeah, but one of the things I said in my statement is I have no idea really what's going on at the Vatican. It's way, way above my daily experience or my pay grade. I don't know what the Pope did or what the Pope didn't do. I don't know what Archbishop Vigano knows or doesn't know.
But is there a political problem that is foundational for this antagonism over this particular scandal thing? That's what I'm talking about.
There's no question.
A philosophical, political problem.
There's no question that this scandal, and now especially on the level of the Vatican, has revealed some deep, deep divisions in the Church, whether they are described as political, I suppose, but they're also theological and pastoral and disciplinary. No question that this has emerged, and that's one of the problems of this situation is that we now have bishops publicly on different sides of the issue accusing each other. We have archbishops. Archbishop Vigano is called one of the cardinals a shameless liar. I mean, that's unheard of in our time, and it's terrible for us to hear that, and it's terrible for the faithful average Catholic as well.
Yeah, so when we come back, we'll talk about whether coughing up all this phlegm, no pun intended.
Thank
You're
you.
okay. You've done well, actually. Life go on. He does much better. Whether it's actually good for us or not, stay with us. So there's a headline that refers to a letter that Bishop Tobin put out, and if you attended Mass on Sunday, you heard about it in some way, shape, or form. It's multiple paragraphs, but you more or less you said that prayer is the solution here. I will tell you, as I was listening, I cheated on Sunday. All summer long, I've been grabbing a Mass whenever I can. So I was a visiting attendee at Mass this Sunday, and the priest where I attended read a couple of your paragraphs, set the stage, and then spoke about the issues himself. I found myself as a Catholic, I'm not here to have a personal theology session, but I looked at the crucifix, and I just kind of went, I just looked at it and said, you know what, this is awful, but this is supposed to still be about you and me. Right, and I think that's some of the message that you've been giving. I'm trying, and I think any time we've ever had a Catholic problem, you grow up, I got 16 years of Catholic education. It wasn't all pretty, right? So anytime there was stuff, you got to remember that this is supposed to be about relationship between you and Christ, right? And God the Father and the whole Trinity thing. I don't mean to be flippant, but you know
Sure.
what I'm talking about. You think going back to church and actually having adoration is a solution, and you're not going to eat for a day next week. So give me the 3 minutes on that thought.
Yeah, well, raises some really, really important points I want to talk about. First of all, we have been talking about the politics in the church and the division between the Pope and the cardinals and archbishops. One of the dangers is we get so wrapped up in the international politics or even the domestic politics that we forget what the real story is about here. We should not take our eyes for a moment off the real victims and survivors of sexual abuse. And they're getting lost, I'm afraid, in this political fight, wrangling in the church. Our primary concern is for the well-being and health and healing of sexual abuse victims and survivors. So I hope that going forward we don't lose sight of that. That's what this is all
I'm
about.
glad you mentioned that. And tomorrow night's show with some of your high-level staffers at the diocese, they're going to talk about the outreach and the stuff that the church has been doing.
Exactly.
So that's important.
But in terms of
it's the most important.
Absolutely, and I don't want anybody to think we're forgetting about that. And that's our commitment.
I'm glad you brought it back to that.
To provide a safe environment and to do our best to follow up when we get allegations and to assist those who have been affected. And we've learned, and we have to remember, that sexual abuse is a wound that does not heal quickly. That's why these stories this summer, whether it's about Archbishop McCarrick or the grand jury report in Pennsylvania or the dispute at the Vatican, it's reopened the wounds for lots and lots of people and their families and for average Catholics. So we shouldn't lose sight of that. In terms of the day of fasting and prayer, it's really a response to what we as a Christian community have done since the time of Christ. And even before that, the precedents in the Old Testament. When the faith community realizes it has sinned, what do? We fast and we pray. The call is very clear in the Old Testament. We do those readings on Ash Wednesday, and we begin our time of prayer and fasting. And it's true throughout the New Testament, throughout the history of the church. When we recognize that we have sinned, what do? We acknowledge our sins, we express our contrition, we fast to express our remorse, and we pray. And that's what this call is all about. As I said in my letter, prayer and fasting is not the end of the problem, but it is a good beginning. Because if it opens our hearts and minds to God, if it makes us more sensitive to the needs of those who have suffered, then that's a good thing. But it doesn't end there, and I said that in my letter.
So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned the Pennsylvania thing and everything else, and that's one thing I wanted to cover. I think you've spoken at length. You had a thorough conversation with Mike Montecavo that you can see on WPRI.com that talks at length about your role as auxiliary bishop between 92 and 96 in Pennsylvania in the diocese that you served in, that it wasn't your job, more or less. And it makes perfect sense how you explain it at length, yet there are a lot of people that have heard that on the surface, a headline or a quip, and they think, check out Bishop Tobin passing the buck here.
Yeah.
He who lives in glass houses maybe ought to be throwing stones. Nothing you could have, and again, the roles, look at Mike's interview because it's a lengthy conversation. Retrospect, were you in a position, do you feel any kind of level of, I should have stepped up? Would it have been important for you to be on the record back then, or was in the real time absolutely not in context?
One of the frustrating things for me in this whole episode, and again, my suffering is very minimal, is that, if I had been named in the grand jury report for malfeasance or cover-up or collusion or whatever, that would have been a big story. The fact that I am not named in the grand jury report now has become a big story. And I wasn't named because in my time in Pittsburgh, I was not primarily responsible for handling these issues. I had no prior knowledge of sexual abuse taking place in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. None.
Right.
None.
And if you spoke up, was it just not your place as auxiliary to be a public voice?
Well, that's the point, is when these allegations came into the diocese, there was a whole team of people handling it. The bishop's office. I was not the bishop, but the bishop's office.
But you heard in the hallways, hey, Father Bill or Father John, guys you might have known, it's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, right?
But I'm getting to that point. The bishop's office, communications, the legal office, the clergy office, there was a whole team of people who were handling this. They were reporting it to civil authorities. They were removing the priest. They were publicizing the problem. They were offering assistance to the victims. The analogy is this: if I didn't report these things because they had already been reported, It doesn't mean I wasn't aware of them, I wasn't concerned about them, I wasn't pained by them. But the analogy is this: if you were driving and you come across an auto accident and 10 other people or 15 other people have already called 911, do you have to call 911 when you know it's already been reported?
Got it.
So that's the analogy. It was being taken care of very aggressively and very professionally, but it wasn't being taken care of by me because other people were doing it and were doing it well.
And short answer though, you suffered through that. You must have known guys that were coming in.
It was terrible. Pittsburgh's my home. I still have great allegiance to Pittsburgh. I have very close priest friends.
And your big weakness.
Very close.
The Steelers.
Priest friends there and family members. And
embarrassing.
yeah, it's my home. I love Pittsburgh and always will.
Some other personal growth issues for the bishop when we only have 2 minutes, but I can't wait to hear the answer when we come back. So this was quite a conversation. We certainly didn't get your Twitter response to it because that was it. We only have a couple of minutes. You've been off Twitter for what, a month, 6 weeks?
About 6-7 weeks.
It's like talking to somebody on the wagon.
Of course.
You doing okay? Here, what happens when I do that?
I have looked at it over the weekend. I thought about it.
I can't do it. You know?
Someday maybe I'll go back to it. This is one of the things that emerged over the weekend.
Do you grab your phone and hit your knees? Come on. Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah,
in all seriousness, you were very, very profound about it.
Thank you. Well, this emerged over the weekend too. Someone said, this is part of the fake news, if I can borrow a term. Someone said, Bishop Tobin, Rhode Island, criticizes Pope Francis, is now prohibited from tweeting. So,
by whom?
Well, that was the mystery, of course. Allegedly, I was prohibited by the Vatican. Now, of course, I stopped tweeting about, 6 weeks ago or so, and the story about Pope Francis only came out last week. So that's some of the crazy stuff that's floating around the internet and social media now about this current crisis.
I only have a half a minute. You stopped because?
I stopped because it was driving me nuts. It became an irritant for me. I was waking up in the middle of the night, checking my Twitter account and going for walks and checking my Twitter account. As I said, it became an occasion of sin. Only, it doesn't mean I got in trouble. It just became a major irritant and distraction for my spiritual life. I was tweeting instead of praying.
Well, I think it's, listen, we can all take that advice. If praying is the alternative, that's fine. But tweeting instead of, spending time with your family. Tweeting is tweeting rather than picking up the phone and dealing with a conflict with somebody personally. Tweeting with blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I think you gave a lot of people pause.
Yeah. Well, again,
so in a way, I thank you for it.
Someday I might go back, but if I do, I will.
Really? Well, come do the show first before you do.
I will let you know when it happens.
That's a big announcement. Press conference. Bishop Tobin is back on Twitter. Listen, I appreciate your response to a difficult challenge. We'll keep the conversation
Thanks,
going.
and please keep all of us in your prayers.
I will. All right. You didn't cough once. That's amazing. What control. When we come back, I'll tell you about tomorrow night, okay? So tomorrow night, we'll follow up the conversation with the bishop to talk about some of the programmatical responses the diocese has to some of these challenges out there. I'm not so sure you even know that we have a director of compliance in the Diocese of Providence. For what? Well, for this kind of stuff, and then stuff I don't even know about. I didn't know. You probably don't know. You'll find out all about it, all right? We'll see you on the radio, too, from 3 to 6 on WPRO tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.